at 7:11, and we'll first rise for our pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I don't believe we have any added agenda item.
We do this evening.
All right, so next on the agenda, we have our Crystal Apple recipients. Are you going to speak to that? or-
Yes, I can. So unfortunately, Dave Mosier was unable to attend. It is in partnership with Horace Mann, who has been a very good partner to the district and has been very supportive of the district in a number of ways since I've been in the district for 20 plus years. And this partnership with Horace Mann, it's essentially recognizing an employee from each of our three schools, referred to the Crystal Apple Award. What I can tell you is, as far as the criteria, the nominee could be any staff member, certified or non-certified, who has demonstrated understanding of the needs of the students as an individual or group of students. They demonstrate through their actions, supportive and caring relationships. They support positive and compassionate school climate. They encourage a love for learning, promoting student success, and exhibit a collegial and collaborative approach. So certainly, some very high criteria and something that we take great pride in celebrating our staff. So with that, what I'll do is one by one call building administration to essentially recognize each of our award winners from each of our schools. So with that, we'll start with elementary. Mr. Ryan.
So unfortunately, the person who was our Crystal Apple Award winner cannot be present this evening. He's currently in class. So unfortunately, his professor would not let him out. So our nominee was Tyler Porcello. And this is what was written about Tyler. I believe that Tyler Porcello deserves the Crystal Apple Award. Tyler has gone above and beyond for the Broadbrook School. You hear his name on the walkie multiple times throughout the day, and you will hear him respond that he is always there to assist. He is always willing to help a staff member, a student that is in need. Tyler has been a great member of our MTSS team as he has helped us as we build our structures and procedures here at Broadbrook School. And also, Tyler was an important part of our summer program. He worked with one particular student to help that student have a productive and fun experience. And we really could not function very well without Tyler here. So, wish him luck.
Next, Mrs. Deitch. Sorry, you ran my, I'm looking.
No, you like looking at Ms. Sharp is the middle school Crystal Apple Award winner. She is our school behavior interventionist. She is dedicated to understanding our students and their feelings and what's going on with them. She's one of the first faces that students see as they come into the building. So she immediately will recognize if somebody is upset, they look like they got something going on. So she'll pull them aside, pull them into her room and start talking to the students to see what's going on and how she can support them so that they have a successful rest of their day. So really setting that tone for the day is really important. She always allows students to speak freely and gives them that opportunity to have their voice heard. So it's also really important. She's always checking in with students, whether it's for attendance or behaviors or something going on with conflict between another peer. She helps them do conflict resolution. I could go on and on about how much she does with our students. But if you ask students, you know, who's somebody that you can go to and talk to if something is going on, the majority of our students will say Ms. Sharp. So she is there for our students, regardless of what's going on, and they feel very comfortable talking with her. So we would definitely struggle without Ms. Sharp in our building. So she's definitely deserving of our Crystal Apple Award winner, and we appreciate everything that she does.
Congratulations. Thank you.
And next, Mrs. Kaminsky for high school.
We told Stacy that she had to do a speech and sing also, so. We had to. Yeah, prepared though for it. This is Stacy Corbin. She was nominated by Mrs. O'Connor. But I could tell you what Mrs. O'Connor has to say. If you ask anyone in the building, they would say the same thing. So this is what Mrs. O'Connor wrote. Stacy is a huge asset to our school. Not only is she great at her administrative duties, she is one of the kindest, most friendly, and happiest people to be around. At the hub of the high school, Stacy sets the tone for anyone entering the main office. She has cultivated a very peaceful, calm, and welcoming environment for both staff and students alike, and is quite adept at making everyone who walks through the door feel like a priority in that moment, even when she has a million other things happening at the same time. She knows how to make people feel seen, safe, and important without giving into any drama or nonsense, and is able to calm people down and redirect them when necessary. These are only some of the attributes that make Stacy invaluable to our school community. It's clear that Stacy loves the school and people in it. Her positivity and excitement for students and staff to be successful and to enjoy their high school experience is contagious. She's a great balance of compassion, encouragement, standards, efficiency, and lightheartedness, and has single-handedly cultivated a friendly and safe atmosphere in the main office to the benefit of all who walk through those doors. Our school wouldn't be the same without her. So thank you.
Just two additional parts of information. Mr. Mosher does have an award that he does want to present to each of the staff. His intent is to drop it off at each school so they can be recognized during a faculty meeting. And I'd like to also share with the board and those in attendance. I've had the pleasure to get to know each of our award winners. I can tell you they're outstanding employees who are very dedicated to our kids and really kid-first people, and certainly appreciate all the work that they do within the district. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And then we usually share that you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but if you'd like to go, you understand. So, okay. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, Patrick had one more.
I have one more thing I almost forgot. We do want to recognize you by having your picture taken and we acknowledge.
We're right in the hallway. So even there's right now.
Where it is.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Find my Tyler's in class. Say it in form if you want. There you go.
All right. Next on our agenda, we have the minutes from October 23rd. I would entertain a motion. Make a motion for the October 23rd. I'll second. Motion made by Courtney and seconded by Heather. Is there any discussion or comments on the minutes? Hearing nothing further. All in favor? Any opposed? Abstain. Sorry, Denise is going to abstain. All right, and everybody else is good? All right, so approved with Denise abstaining. Right, next, we have public participation. I believe most of our chairs emptied out, but do we have any public participation? Can't see everybody, so, all right, I think we're good. All right, next we have our student representative report.
Broadbrook Elementary School had a busy end of October. On October 26th, members of the East Windsor Board of Education, East Windsor community, and Broadbrook Elementary staff and students worked under the direction of East Windsor Arts and Culture Commission to paint the crosswalk between the elementary school and town hall. On October 28th, our SRO, Officer Lindsay Valencia, taught all Broadbrook Elementary students about Halloween safety. On October 31st, the Warehouse Point and Broadbrook Fire Departments brought their fire trucks and taught all elementary students about fire prevention and what to do in case of a fire. On October 28th, the middle school hosted its inaugural student council breakfast, recognizing students for their valuable contributions to the school community. East Windsor First Selectman Jason Bauza attended the event, delivering words of encouragement and leading the student council members in an official oath of office. On November 1st, East Windsor Middle School held its third school-wide incentive featuring fall-themed activities like mummy races with toilet paper, which provided students with a fun and festive experience. On October 25th, 7th grade students enjoyed a visit to Springfield Museums, where they had a great time exploring the Dr. Seuss Museum and the Art Museum. On November 2nd, The middle school cross-country team participated in the middle school state open, where students had an outstanding experience with every racer improving their times. East Windsor High School started a new tradition as we continue to develop and honor our students' progress through the portrait of the graduate competencies. Each quarter, we will hold a special student recognition breakfast where teachers and staff nominate students who excel in one or more of the portrait of the graduate areas, such as lifelong learners, self-aware individual, responsible citizen, etc. At our recent breakfast on Friday, October 25th, we proudly celebrated students who exemplify these values through their achievements in and out of the classroom. These students have shown commitment, growth, and a positive impact on our school community. We hope you'll join us in congratulating them and encouraging all students to strive for excellence in these important areas. These students do not hide their Panther pride and are pride worthy. These quarter's honorees were Michelle Abruzzi, Vanessa Bart, Louis Barrios, Nathaniel Clark, Skylar Gonzalez, Cooper King, Jalexis Mercado, Janaya Ramos, David Schweitzer, Oralee Scott, and Greenlee Wilsack. On Monday, myself and my peers, members of Safe School Leaders and Leo Club, assisted Ms. Gustafson with the Veteran Medal Ceremony. We honored 31 veterans, many of which being East Windsor alum or residents. On Saturday, students from all three schools and the cross-country teams, of course, ran the Veterans Day 5K, winning many age group placements, and they also had the record number of participants. It was very fun. It was a very hard course, but we had a lot of fun.
And congratulations earlier this evening on being named student of the quarter. Is that correct?
Outstanding student.
Outstanding student of the quarter. So you got recognition in the cafeteria earlier. Congratulations. All right, and thank you very much. All right, next on our agenda, we have the list of upcoming meetings and events. We have our Kids and Caps convention in Groton this weekend that we're attending on Friday. And then we also want to note the November 18th meeting, because I know that's newer on our calendar to discuss our board goals. Anything that you wanted to call out specifically?
Yeah, I mean, just a couple things going through the first 3 dates. Just a reminder, I know from my participation, PTO pie pickup is that day too, on the 14th earlier in the day. For Cave Caps convention, I know we have a number of members going. Kate and Betsy, you're signed up for Friday and Saturday, and then Denise, Fran, Heather, and Gabby, you are signed up for Friday. Myself and Daryl will be there all Friday as well too. We do have to head back for Saturday because of the emergency drill that they're running on the town side at the middle school. And then as far as board goals, I will need a brief executive session after board goals. Just with a couple of updates, one with contract negotiations, another one regarding pending litigation.
All right, and as you can see, there's a number of other items on there. Did anybody have any other questions or anything about the list?
No, but I really appreciate this list.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, you're welcome. I can't remember who requested it way back when, but
Might have been.
And I just may not be able to stay for that executive session after.
Carrie let me know on the 18th. Yeah, she's
So it just depends how long the meeting runs. For me on the 18th, a work meeting came up at 6 as well. So it should only be about an hour, so I can hop in for the second half and probably the executive session. But I may need to do it virtually.
okay. We'll see how long. I'm not sure what Justin was thinking in terms of like,
Okay.
so.
Okay, just let me know.
Thank you for letting us know.
I have one other thing. We have in here that the band, the fourth grade band recital is at the high school at 6 on the 10th, on December 10th. The middle school has a concert on the 19th of November, next Tuesday at 6. I believe that's at the middle school.
6.
It'd be there for 6. So I just put it in, that's
I
my,
think it started.
I load it for the time if the kids. I believe it's 6:30 then, November 19th, next Tuesday.
At the
Middle school.
Just a general. Athletics is not listed on here, which is fine. We decided at our last meeting that we're gonna meet quarterly. There's nothing in December because Fourth is just kicking off, but we're gonna go to a quarterly setup, and then call meetings if necessary.
Okay, thank you for that update. Okay. We good, ready for our high school board?
Yes.
So I'm tag teaming this with Daryl. We combined the curriculum report with the high school report for efficiency for you all.
And we
Thank you.
appreciate that.
So what we did is we took this 2-page document that I received in September and turned it into a 14-page. That's easy for you.
That's efficient.
Way to shorten it up.
Yeah. So anyways, what we want to do is we're gonna, next slide, please. We're gonna talk a little about NEASC, in the process of NEASC. And what we did was, recently we had to submit a three-year progress report to NEASC. And the results of that progress report were given to me on September 24th. So we just wanted to kind of talk a little about what NEASC is, what the process is for that, what happened initially and where we are in the process and what the results of that were. So Daryl's going to help me out with some of the background about what NEASC is, and I'm going to, and that will lead into number 5 and number 6 on the agenda here so that you can understand where we come and where we are now.
Yeah, so I think, in looking at the next several slides, we're going to cover these main topics. So you can go to the next slide, Pat. But first, what is NEASC? And you've probably all heard of it, but it's the New England Association of Schools and Colleges. It's an independent organization that really operates here in the United States, but also globally throughout many, many countries. And what it does is create some academic standards, and then it goes into school districts and really evaluates where they are related to a specific set of standards. So every school district, and you'll see this a little bit later on in the slideshow, you submit progress monitoring related to where you are in your goals, where you are in your systems. And NEASC provides accreditation based on your reports, based on them coming out to visit, based on their feedback and how you've adapted. The whole system has really evolved over the last several years. When NEASC used to come in, people were very fearful. And they would say, you know, this is what you are doing, this is what you didn't do, and get like a slap on the wrist. The system has evolved to make it much more of a give and take and much more of a growth mindset in terms of what are you doing to show that you've grown in the areas that you've highlighted. So really that's some of the work that Allison will talk about and talk about some of the growth that we have made. And that's what the model has shifted toward is let us know what your goals are, how you're going to get there, and then show that you have made the growth that you said you were going to set out to make. The foundational elements here, as Allison goes through some of her presentation, those are important to kind of keep in the back of your mind because it really relates to the areas in our strategic school profile and or strategic plan, not school profile, strategic plan and our portrait of the graduate. They link specifically to facilities, curriculum, culture of the building, what sort of resources you have in the building. Are those resources provided equitably? Everything related to the school district. So as you look through what some of our priorities are and what we've highlighted in our plan, those connect very well to our portrait of the graduate. And then, as I mentioned, the priority areas. So the process and how it looks so far for us. So over the last several years, Allison has gotten up and she's talked about self-reflection. So this is really the first aspect of our NEASC accreditation process. So prior to May 2018, that was submitted. Collaborative conference where they came out to the school district, a couple of representatives. It's over 2 days, I believe. The collaborative conference, they meet with small teams and it's really just kind of like a touch point for the district. Then the high school spent a lot of time development and implementation of a school growth plan. how are we going to implement our plan of action? After that, March 21, the reflective summary report completed by the school. Basically, we provide an update for NEASC. These are the things we've accomplished, and you submit that to them. And then the personalized decennial accreditation visit in March 21.
Yeah, okay, so then after the decennial visit, there's a system of progress monitoring, how you did and where you're going with the recommendations they gave you after the decennial visit. And so they ask you for a 1-year report. And that we did in May 1st of 2022, and I reported to you all on that and what they asked us to continue to do. And then there's a 3-year report, which was due last May, and that's the report that I received in September. And then we have a 6-year report that will be due on May 1st, 2027.
And what Allison is leaving out is I send her calendar invites for those dates every month. And say like, hey, let's talk. So,
Yeah, I'm like, what is this all about? No. And I'm on time.
yeah.
Okay. So anyways, so prior to, like Dale said, this is kind of the timeline, and it's kind of like continuous and it's circular. Dale mentioned that prior to May of 2018, I was up here talking to you about this, but I wasn't here. So this is what happened. So we submitted a report. They came out and told us what some recommendations of what we need to do. We developed a growth plan. Barbara and I were not here for any of that. And then we came out on the scene right when we had to do the summary report. So we did that during the pandemic. And then they came during the pandemic and did a virtual visit. They were here, but virtually. And we did a pretty good job. They were very proud of us. They said we did a nice job. They gave us some recommendations, and then they asked us to follow up. And so now we're in the follow-up stage right here, and we're in the middle of that. And you can see once that 7-year report is done, it starts again. So then we're going to have to we start the 10-year cycle all over again. We do a new self-reflection. They come again, and it just kind of ongoing of action planning and adjustment and those kinds of things. Prior to this new process too, as Daryl alluded to, you create a NEASC committee, and you'd have NEASC chairs, and they would meet with subgroups of your faculty, and you basically shut down all professional development in your building because you had to focus on NEASC, and it's no longer like that anymore. Our instructional leadership team is our NEASC team. They're the ones doing the work. They're the ones completing the cycle. They're the ones doing the action planning. So when they came out at the decennial visit, they gave us 5 priority areas that they wanted us to focus on. And so I'm just going to go through those and just let you know where we are with each of those. So next slide, please. So this was one of the priority areas around professional development and teachers and having common language around instructional moves in the classroom. And so when they came out on the 10-year visit, those were the recommendations. Create some kind of look for document or some kind of look fors that you want all teachers to do in their classrooms. And that if I'm a student at East Windsor High School and I walk into any room, this is what I can expect to see. They want us to come up with some commitments, and they want us to focus on student-centered instruction. And so in the year 1 report, one of the things they also asked to do is have more teacher leadership in the building. So based on that recommendation, the district reassigned PLC leaders that had previously been cut out of the budget. They were reestablished into the budget. And so we had PLC leaders, and we started focusing on learning targets and having those commitments in our classrooms. And that we shared in the year 1 report to them. And then now that in year 3, we have a fully established instructional leadership team made of representatives from all of the areas of the school. We have instructional commitments that all of our teachers know. I've gone over those with you all. I don't have to go into the details with that. We have a system of walkthrough so that the administration team does, and feedback where we collect data and we figure out how that's going to inform our professional development for our staff. And we collaborate with the ILT and how we're going to run that professional development. And we have an instructional coach that also helps with teachers that need a little coaching in the classroom, or maybe just help us with running professional development and things like that. So that's priority 1. And that's the progress that we've made since the NEASC report. The next one was on the library. If you were on the Board of Education a while ago, you put a lot of money into the library because one of the recommendations they had was to update the resources. And so we've been doing that. And so really they just keep saying,
keep updating your resources, keep a library that is meeting the needs of our students and the needs of society and all that stuff. So we've been doing that. They said keep doing that and keep providing us as a district to keep doing things like that with the library. The next one was we had a service team model, and when COVID was here and Barbara and I came in, we ended up doing something called Kid Talk, which was just a system we had where we talked about students and like their needs when around behavior, academics, and attendance during the pandemic. So when they came, they said, keep talking about kids like that, keep doing Kid Talk and things like that. Keep doing SEL in your tier 1 classrooms. Continue with home visits since we were doing those during the pandemic. We established a 9th grade team. They liked that. They were like, that helps foster the transition from the middle school to the high school, and provide stipends for leaders that are running those service team Kid Talk type things. And so in year 1, we had implemented a freshman seminar transition class, and they gave us kudos for that, for doing that. And now in year 3, we've kind of like flipped Kid Talk to 180, but it's still Kid Talk, but now it's called MTSS. And with the help of that consultant group, we now have a full system at the high school that we talk about attendance, behavior, academics, and our systems overall at the school based on data. We have grade level teams that have grade level liaisons that report back to the MTSS team, and the district has provided resources to help support all that work. And this is all coming from this priority area of service team / MTSS. Yes, Denise.
What does MTSS stand for?
Multi-tier support systems. And so basically what that is we look at different kinds of data around students, mainly attendance data, for example, and we try to decide, is attendance a tier 1 or tier 2 problem at the high school? So if 80% of our students are coming to school 90% of the time, then it's not a tier 1 problem. It's a tier, we worry about the smaller group. If only 70% of our students are coming to school 90% of the time, now it's a tier 1 problem. The entire school needs to kind of do some kind of intervention. So we look at things like that. We also look at like cohorts. So is grade 9 having a hard time with academics, let's just say, is grade 10 having a hard time with behavior, like where it fits. So it might not be a school-wide situation. It might just be linked to a cohort. And we have the MTSS team that looks at that information.
And the other component to that, Denise, too, is when we look at the MTSS data, whether it's attendance, whether it's behavioral, whether it's academic, that helps us pinpoint where professional development might need to take place. Because if we are noticing trends in a certain area, it could indicate that more specific training is needed, which then goes back to that other priority area of the professional development.
And that picture down at the bottom there, part of our attendance initiative for tier 1 attendance was students that had 90% or more attendance and had perfect attendance for the month of September received certificates, and we provided them with those and did a raffle prize. They got raffles. They raffled off homecoming tickets to students, and so we had 4 winners for that.
So rigged.
So I guess Mariella didn't win. No.
I'm getting that impression.
So.
I was actually hiding the picture of this thing.
All right. The next one was the curriculum. When they had come, they noticed we had curriculum written, but it was all written in different formats. It didn't really align all continuously. So Daryl and his team got together and decided we got to fix this. So that was our recommendation. Get it all in one format, have some kind of reference to a portrait of the graduate. That at that time really hadn't been developed yet. But they wanted the portrait of the graduate in the curriculum documents, and provide students with more external opportunities outside of the high school for them to experience things that are not just at the high school. So then year 1, we did talk about how we extend those post-secondary opportunities by our Pathways program, and how we had a Pathways advisory board, and we had brought in some of the community members to assist with that. And then in our year 3, we talked about how we are continuing the pathways, and we are formatting the same curriculum. The curriculum is still formatting the same. And we did include some of those competencies and things like that of the portrait of the graduate into our curriculum. And that was really, and so they commended on us on that, and they appreciated that we had done that. And the last priority area that they really want us to, it was the first priority area, but I figured it would be good at the end here for this part, was the portrait of the graduate. We had to create a portrait of graduate, roll it out, and have it be part of
everything we do here in the district. And so, their recommendations was to roll it out, have rubrics, curriculum, implement it in the curriculum, have some way of monitoring the portrait of the graduate with students and communicating that portrait of the graduate with the families. And so the year one, we talked about how we did roll it out and how it's directly linked to the strategic plan that you all are familiar with. And then in year three, we talked about how we're communicating it and we developed the rubrics in year three, which is last year. So then they came back with some new recommendations. And so a lot of it though was nice because it was like continue to, which is really what we like to see, right? So they said, continue to talk about tier one instructional strategies and have common language in your high school around that. So every kid isn't surprised when they walk in a room what the expectations are. They said, continue to work on SEL in your tier one classrooms and provide emotional support in your classrooms. Continue to do the MTSS and use data to make decisions. Continue to do the portrait of the graduate, but the recommendation was now implement it with fidelity and find some way to monitor it. So we have started to do some of that work with the report cards, having departments take on competencies, give us assignments to students. I'm sure you've seen communication about this in all your child's schools if you have children in the district, and then how we're going to monitor that to see if they reach the goals that we have for those competencies with the portrait of the graduate. Continue the Pathways program to provide students those post-secondary opportunities. And the facility upgrades was not a priority area for the high school, but it's one of those foundational elements that Daryl talked about. And so that facilities upgrades, they reference as well, continue to make upgrades. Like we referenced, we had done something with gym and then we're working on we can reference the track as well.
So I have a question, just in terms of the monitoring
Mhm.
and the competency. So, all this stuff sounds great. So you were talking about that whole idea of monitoring and then communicating. And you said something about report cards. So how are the competencies really? Because I don't see the report cards. I'm just curious. How does that translate into a high school report card? Grades, we talked about actual grades.
Yep.
And then the competency. How does that work?
Yeah, so over the last couple of years, so this actually, Betsy, if you get a minute afterwards, this is the rubrics for our portrait of the graduate. So every one of these rubrics, so lifelong learners has curious, motivated, problem solvers, or open-minded. So what the high school did and the middle school and the elementary school did is they assigned or they chose different competencies for each of these rubrics. So if I was an English teacher, curious, open-minded, those might be two competencies that in my English class, I could easily assess students because I could base it on what their questioning strategies are, what their writing strategies are, what types of questions are they asking. So I could potentially understand if a student is in fact curious to what we want to assess. And then on the report card, we've graded that associated with that class. And there'll be multiple teachers for each student who will grade one of these competencies.
So the competencies, so if you're in a class, you're getting it, are you getting a letter grade, a check? How is that indicated?
Yeah.
Is it embedded in the grade?
You're getting a number, like a 1, 2, 3, or
Okay.
4 based on the standard. And then at the high school, it's a little different than probably at the elementary school. What we did was we created a system where, like if Daryl's teaching English and I'm teaching math and we're both doing communicating, let's say, for example, and he gives a 2 and I give a 3 on the same competency.
Okay.
We have in the grade book, it all kind of averages together.
Okay.
And then that grade, that standard number, that the average will be posted on your report card.
On the
So it would be
report
like
card, the parents would know.
Yes.
what's going on.
Yes, and just, so you won't see every little detail, but you'll see just like, at this point, we think your student's a 3 in this area.
Yeah, and I mean, realistically, these are the questions and the way we shaped it to all of the teachers is, if you have a child and you go in for your conference with your child's teacher, everyone says, your child is doing well, they're getting A's or getting B's or getting C's, what have you. And a lot of parents will say, well, is my child polite? Are they raising their hand? Are they sharing with their, peers? Are they, all of those social skills that we all know that are extremely important, that's an element of that. So like the portrait of the graduate is measuring those soft skills that we all know are important. And obviously, we're taking into account whether a child is at elementary, middle, or high school, what those skills might look like.
But there's two different things. So it's the academic, that's the average, right, grade,
Mhm.
and then the competency in that rubric there. Okay, good.
So in closing, I just wanted to say, yes, although it is an evaluation system or a progress monitoring system based at most districts' high schools, it really kind of fuels the district plan for most districts, because whatever you say the portrait of the graduate is going to be at the high school, you kind of tear that all the way down to middle school, all the way down to kindergarten, and or you build it up, however you want to say it. And so a lot of the recommendations that come out of these reports definitely fuel what you all are doing. They fuel your strategic plan. You can see goal 1 is talking about the portrait of the graduate. That language came directly from NEAS. Goal 2 is about the SEL strategies and having kids want to be equitable and things like that. That's from NEAS. And it's good, obviously good instruction and good teaching, but this comes from here. Upgrading, maintaining facilities. That was one of those, those things that were non-negotiable kind of things. And then goal 4, involving the community and improving and parent communication. So all these goals that we all worked as a district directly come out of the NEAS plan. And so that's really it. If anyone has any questions?
Yes. So you had said at the beginning that I thought when we went through this, because I was here, I think at 21, well, I would know I was there in 21 when we were doing it.
Yeah.
So you had said that it's a national, but it's also, there's other countries that do this. So how is that standard set though for Connecticut, East Windsor versus, a different state or what have you, like how, like, do they bring it down to the level, bring it up to the level? Like, what's the average, especially if you're throwing other countries into it?
Yeah, so, well, the NEASC obviously is the New England Association of Schools and Colleges, so there are regional components to it. I can't necessarily speak to what they
Okay.
do in other regions, because I specifically deal, and I know Allison deals specifically with
Okay.
New England.
Yep.
So, this is the same organization where like I'll go on school visits and see, and they provide a booklet and it's very specific.
Okay.
When you go into these schools, these are some of the things that we're looking for.
Okay.
Whether they do that for other countries, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you were in Massachusetts, it'd be very similar. I can tell you when I was in high school, our high school was placed on probation for subpar facilities.
Okay.
Yeah, and one of my visits a few years ago was in Massachusetts.
Okay.
And that was all under NEASC. So like I could have the opportunity to go anywhere in the New England states.
Okay.
But it's all the same.
Okay.
But outside of that, I'm not sure.
What is a 10-year plan?
Basically, so you do the reflection and then you're like, after you do that reflection, they basically say, this is what we think you need to do to improve your school. Create an action plan around that. They give you 2 years to work at that. And they come in and say, how have you done on the action plan? And then they make sure you're actually doing it. You're not just lying on paper, right? I mean, that's probably why they show up, right? And then they want to make this accountability system, right? They want to make sure you're doing what you say. And then they ask you to reflect after they come with the recommendations to follow up and say, all right, year 1, how are we still doing this? Year 3, what are some things that maybe have changed, and so on.
I mean,
When do we start the cycle over again?
2027.
So the bottom line is you're an accredited school.
Yes. Yes.
Bottom line.
The bottom line is, and we're still accredited and we've passed again and they like us. I mean, what's not to like?
Is there some kind of like a demographic or a compilation of all the schools in the New England area? And like, that's been true.
yeah, write these down. I'll take these and send them off to NEASC and say, email Heather.
Sorry.
No, I mean, and ultimately, like, going on these visits, you have a chance to speak to board members, administrators, teachers, students, parents, everyone across the board. And one of the key takeaways, in all the reports is how well aligned for all of those voices. So what is the board's vision versus the admin? And is it aligned? Is it not? And if it isn't, so we're in a really good spot, to Allison's point, related to like Portrait of the Graduate, our strategic plan. It aligns very, nicely with the NEASC, which then aligns across our district. So, I think that speaks, to a lot of the work that you guys have been overseeing. So.
Well, it's definitely positive, because like I said, I recall just being a new member on the board when they came in 21, and I remember it being more of a conversation of, it wasn't like you're scared of them, but it was more of a, this is, it's a big deal.
Yeah, it's uneasy.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
it sounds to me like you guys are doing a great job and implementing everything, so.
I'll know what the action plan is this time.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, next, on the agenda, we have new business. Did you want to speak to a couple things regarding the
Sure.
co-op policy to start with, and then we'll decide kind of where?
Yeah, absolutely. Regarding, the co-op, policy as far as, reading, we don't have any current policy. It has gone through BPR. It has gone to athletic, subcommittee twice. Was earlier, today, it was on the finance subcommittee. There was one provision, since like going through, those committees, since this was posted to, and I can provide additional context. But in that first, paragraph on the policy on page 13 in your packet, where it says participation fees, from the host school district, not to exceed 1,000. To give a little bit more context and provide some additional information based on, board request. This, specifically came from, the costs associated with, hockey and gymnastics. Some of the questions the board did ask was, essentially cost for our students to participate in other sports. Rough estimate, if you take all our costs as far as in district, from last year, and whether it was officiating fees, coaches' salaries, supplies such as uniforms, transportation. We had 141 participants in sports at high school last school year, which cost roughly about $1,300 to $1,400 per athlete. Now, that does include the costs if they were hockey, gymnastics, golf, whatever. So that's not pulling out any sport from the high school. I know, again, this originated from our co-ops with hockey and gymnastics. On average, what we're roughly looking at this year, I believe, is 2,400 per student athlete. Just didn't want to provide that as information. Some additional information on hockey that Dean shared with me today too was traditionally on a year-to-year basis, the Tri-Town Hockey Booster Club does provide parents a $500 essentially supplement to offset the family cost. That's the information. Obviously, I'll take the guidance from the board. Certainly, the information is timely because we do have student athletes that will transition. Those numbers are only going to increase in the upcoming year. And again, I'll take the guidance of the board, but something, as budget season comes, obviously I would need that information to budget appropriately.
I just wanted to add something that I learned of the athletic subcommittee when this came up, was the amount of money that we were spending on the football kids that were playing football, because we evidently provide them transportation to Stafford where they get their transportation provided for practices. I was given an estimate of it costing us for 3 students this year about $22,000 total for their transportation costs. This is what was said in that meeting, so my personal.
I can absolutely provide some context with that too. We are part of the co-op for football. That agreement does end next year. I can tell you the cost is of concern and is something that I've shared with the finance subcommittee. Certainly, there will be some type of addressing of that through my budget proposal that I bring forward to the board. It isn't an apples to apples comparison because one is budgetary, one is policy. But regardless, they both still have an impact on budget. I will say that when we do budget for those type things, we had 8 kids originally in football. I know that the season finished with 3, so to put it in additional context, it was started with 3 and we ended with 3. The year prior, we had 12 kids that started. So certainly, especially in those larger sports, your starting number isn't always your finishing number. Certainly, what you bring forward certainly is something that does need to be discussed budgetary, very similarly to the policy here. But regardless, like I take my guidance from the board, and certainly if this is like a priority, obviously, I'll take that and, work the budget around those numbers.
After the discussion with the finance subcommittee, and I had not really participated in the athletic committee, it just seems like there's a lot of unanswered pieces to all of this, and maybe we should table it till we are actually doing the budget, because I don't think this policy that we have here in front of us is what will answer all the questions that we have. The equitability of some sports getting rides provided, busing provided, and others not, the amount that we're gonna be paying for different sports. Is it fair? I think it's a little early to have a policy that maybe doesn't address everything, just my opinion.
I agree in the fact that I think it needs to be put forward and we know that it's equitable.
Anybody else from policy want to speak to it? Because I know it was discussed last time on policy in terms.
I can speak to something just even as far as policy. I think it was prior to kind of thinking about some of the transportation. So in my opinion, what we looked at, we kind of talked about this as policy. We looked at the budgetary pieces. We really felt that this was, that this was something that really had to be considered and looked at just in terms of cost, right? And so that was part of the consideration. I also believe that this is not only, if we have more questions about this as we move forward and to vote on this. So the question, I think it's both policy and budget. Because it's not only about, how we fund, I think the co-op sports, but it also has to do about transportation. And is that part of the policy within the co-op sports? I think we talked about that. And if I look at, what I look at in the new participation, the new policy.
The second sentence says
Right.
transportation.
Transportation is not provided. Is that correct?
So would that affect?
So that would, to me, when we say something like that, I think that would indicate this is a co-op sport. It would indicate all co-op sports.
Sorry.
Right, but how did they get to some getting busing and others not?
Well, I think the thought process when we were talking about it initially was hockey and
Yeah.
gymnastics were the specific first ones, and because of the ice times and because of the practice times for gymnastics, those are not like right after school. So I think that's why,
They didn't get busing.
unless I'm misunderstanding, they just don't have buses because it's just not applicable, because ice time could be at like 6 o'clock in the morning and gymnastics could be 10 o'clock at night.
What about swimming?
Swimming is the same thing. It's just the same thing. So that's why transportation for the co-op is why that's written that way. But I do have, football.
But,
the
Yeah,
question.
the way it reads, I would think
Yeah.
it would affect football
Yeah.
as well, the way it reads right now, so.
And I think we're starting a wrestling co-op. Wrestling is gonna be a winter sport and they're going to
Girls.
field, I think. So, is that considered a co-op that we're not gonna bring them to Bloomfield, or are we going?
Right.
My understanding from the policy meeting was that I thought the wording was gonna be like transportation at the discretion of the board pending like budgetary.
Gabby is correct.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think we touched on that. Yeah, so it sounds like a few things do need to be
Just
further updated or changed anyway.
Yeah, I guess the only thing that I would ask is, so the policy is, I mean, part of the challenges is, this is now the sixth board, meeting that it's been on the agenda for versus subcommittees, 2 board meetings now. I guess to assist me, I really need like clear, explicit, like information, like what questions do you need to to move in a direction? So ultimately, you are the board. Like, what is the direction you would like me to proceed for budgetary purposes? Because it started in an athletic subcommittee and it's just a continuous
Kind
constant
of a
circle.
circle, yeah.
So at this point, it's been 6 meetings.
And the other thing I was gonna say, just in terms of, just because you brought up girls soccer, I think if girls soccer at this point becomes a co-op, we were talking about, we would be hosting that. So just for clarity for the discussion.
that wasn't set in stone according to Dean, just so you know.
Okay.
Can
Okay.
I offer a suggestion, just for budgetary reasons, because Patrick's gonna, I mean, we obviously have to move forward with that. This needs to be addressed. Maybe we just give the guidance to Patrick that we continue the next school year with the same way that we've been doing it. And then between now and when we start to go through budget, we'll be able to dial this in. Is that feasible?
That's fine. So.
Is it a feasible?
Like essentially, like we will, like our budget will be about 20,000 higher
Mhm.
to account for the anticipated.
We
student,
always
just-
sit down anyways and have that conversation during
But-
our budget.
But then, but then, how this originated was to be fair for families, so they had prior knowledge. So you would just like, if you do make a change and say, okay, now we need to change policy, it's going to be late notice to families. So why it originated in the time it did was to provide appropriate notice to families, giving them advance notice.
And I
Is
think
there a way for Dean to give us a breakdown of each co-op sport and how much money we're spending out of our budget for each of them, whether it be football, swimming, gymnastics, hockey? For me, that's what I would like to see so that I can see what we're spending on.
which sounds like it's gonna change though, because if we start going soccer's co-op and it's, yes, this is gonna be where the host, I mean, it sounds like our trend is starting to go that way, so I think it will be hard for us to determine what the end result was.
So we had asked Ryan, Noreen and I at the athletic meeting to possibly come with a breakdown of numbers, actually, even just by sport, it's kind of. To me, it makes more sense to look at like what we're spending per sport per athlete, because then you can actually get a breakdown of what it's actually costing you per athlete depending on the sport, because it can vary very differently, honestly, and that's the most. For me, my perspective, to get that data and making it most equitable for everybody and doing it in the most equitable way, because that's my biggest concern is. And then also giving parents notice is great. I can tell you from my perspective, I expect to pay money when my kid's playing a sport like that. And so to me, it's not like this, oh my gosh, I'm not gonna come up with the money for him to play. I'm gonna come up with the money. I think it's great to want to give people notice, but I also think that putting something in policy, we have to have all that information. It's just a breakdown of data, because like you said, some sports are gonna go to co-op, but what are we currently?
I'm just concerned that we're going down. I think that we should have a little bit more understanding of the athletic, but overall, I think that's just not a question we normally ask. But I'm concerned that we're gonna go too far down into the weeds, that there are some decisions that, we have people that make those decisions too. I do think that we need to adjust this. I do think that we need to look at this as far as co-op and how future sports will end up being, if it's going to fall into this policy. So, I think that that's all valid concerns, but,
And kind of what's gonna get cut if
Yeah.
we have to add $20,000.
and I also am concerned about perspective with parents too. We were talking about, like, we're losing interest in sports. I don't want this to be a negative message for parents, because then we may have less kids being in sports. So I see pros and cons in both of this, but I just want to make sure like we do right, but I don't want to see us dragging it a long time too. So
Noreen, you had your hand raised too.
A couple of things, and I get that we want to get this done. And I understand it's been at a couple of meetings. It started in athletics, it went to finance, it went to policy, who didn't meet. It didn't answer their emails, so then it just kind of came to our last meeting, got.
It did go to policy
But we
again,
have
though,
met
and
now.
it was.
So again, but the circle that it took was not out of anybody's desire not to get this done.
And didn't
And
it
in the
get
time that it has come to light, there have been a lot of questions that have come to light as well. It's not a straightforward thing. I did not know until last Friday that there was some $22,000 being spent on football. There's also other things for me in here that in the month and a half or whatever that we've been looking at this, I've come to realize that a lot of schools have pay to play. So if we're going to charge, so if Ellington is charging every kid $250 just to participate in athletics and then paying $500 for hockey, does that mean our kids are going to pay $750? Do they have to pay the $250 plus the $5? I think we need to take a deeper dive into this and understand it from the perspective of all of this. If we're sending wrestlers to Bloomfield, are we transporting them? And are we paying what Bloomfield does as a pay to play for their wrestlers to be there? I don't think it's as cut and dry as it is. And I really think we need to look at it from the perspective of we're spending $250,000 on athletics. And not to drag more into this, but we don't spend anything near that on anything else. And are we being equitable in spending those kinds of resources on something that we don't quite have a handle on when maybe we should be spending more on our drama programs or on other, and I don't want to throw too much into it, but I won't vote on this right now. I don't have enough information, and more things have risen to the top in the conversations that have been going on that I was not aware of.
Just to answer those questions, Bloomfield does not have a pay to play. The intent would be to pay for transportation. We did cap the number of students. Dean said we probably could double the amount of students that were interested.
And I don't disagree with those as reality, Patrick.
Yep.
But it's a bigger idea of what do we need to look at going forward to ensure that we're not having to switch policies or that we're not having to come up with the information that we didn't have to make the policy fair and equitable to our 1,000 students.
Yeah, and I understood that.
140 students.
And I respect where you're coming from. It's just you stated that you weren't sure, so I was providing information.
So I have a question, sorry. So just for clarification. So pushing this out to the springtime to budget season, that's gonna help us determine the portion for each student that we're willing to pay, or like which sports we're willing to co-sponsor? Like what is the goal with pushing it out to spring? I guess is my question.
And that's kind of what I was gonna ask, like if we're, and I understand that people may not be comfortable, but as Patrick said, what are you looking for in terms of the next step or what information, what questions
I
need to be answered to
I
move it
think
forward?
my thing is like, if we wait until budget season and we start putting specific numbers into the policy, that's also gonna change on a year-to-year
Yeah.
basis, depending on what the other districts are charging their
Yeah,
students.
no, I would agree. And I think we talked about not being like, we can't really put specific numbers in policy. That's like not what we want to do.
Yeah, like I get that you want to make policies as specific as possible, but I also.
And I think that's where Patrick was.
Dig ourselves into a hole.
I
with
think that's what you're saying about the transportation at the discretion.
Yeah,
So if we generalize this, then we as a board, when we're doing our budget, then we can dial that piece in, but this is generalized so that it addresses co-op sports and just giving the parents the foundation of knowing that there is a possibility that they'll end up having to pay for something. I understand the economic stuff. I think that is something we do have to look at. I also know like every sport's got a different cost to it. So I think just giving Patrick guidance on what will help him move forward, I think is the best thing for us to do right now. I don't know what subcommittee is the best one to address this next, though. I don't think it's like a big board meeting because
that it'll last a while. I don't know if it's a finance or if you go back to athletic and then at some point come back to policy. It touches all of them.
You know what, if you keep going to all these different subcommittees,
That's
and you bring it to certain people, and then it's gonna go around and round and round, like, this is my opinion, so.
Right, that's it.
Whatever information we're asking for him to bring back to us, honestly, I think it is better to just bring it to everyone at once, because then otherwise you're gonna hit three different meetings again.
Yeah.
And then it's gonna, it's nothing.
I almost wonder if we should have a workshop or something about, maybe not just this policy, but about.
I just,
Well, I would take a look at this policy. I totally agree with you, Carrie, that we have subcommittees and we're doing this work, but a lot of the stuff just comes and some of the stuff we are not aware of. You know, it goes here, it goes there. I mean, it's just because all of us are busy, but we don't have all of the information in some of the
I mean,
cases.
I'm,
And we don't have the time to discuss.
I very much straightforward would like a breakdown. I had asked Ryan, so I'm hoping that
You
he
asked
will
for that.
follow through with it. He said by December, he was busy, so at the December meeting, he could bring a breakdown of.
Yeah, my only concern and cautious is like it's budget season, and so certainly we want to provide as much information as possible, but we have to prioritize Ryan's time. He is a valuable resource to the district. So I guess my question is, what specific information and like how much time is it going to take him to do this? Because I mean, you have about the average cost per student that participates in a sport. I mean, you want so specific where numbers can change. I mean, do we want it for freshmen? Do we want it for JV? Do we want like what?
He's saying like $22,000 for football, and then you're telling me it costs $1,400 per student. Like, I'm getting a little frustrated because I feel like that's a very different set amount of information. I'm being very specific on what I'm asking for, and I just feel like if you don't want to give me that information, that's fine. I'm not gonna vote on this. If other people want to vote on it, they can. If I need to step away from it, I can, but I'm feeling a little frustrated because it's different information to tell me that it costs us $1,500 on average per student. You just told me hockey costs us $2,400. Football could cost us $8,000 a student, and then soccer costs $500 a student. I think it's valuable information.
And in fairness to Ryan, the request was Friday and it's Wednesday.
No, I didn't ask for it for today.
No,
He
he said-
specifically said he
It
would
wasn't
get to us
expected
in
for
December. He said that he would have time to get to it by then. I'm not rushing him. If he doesn't have time to do it now, then that's fine. But
I appreciate that. Carrie, did you have something else, Denise, that you want?
So I know this is very simplistic, but why have we not thought about,
Nobody gets transportation.
and that takes that off set here.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
But that's at the discretion, and at the discretion then means, well, you've got a board member who's a football parent or a swim parent, and they really push it, or some group comes and pressures you and we give in. At the discretion doesn't mean it's fair and equitable. It means that we'll pick and choose. So if nobody gets transportation or everybody gets transportation, that's an easy budget. You know, you've got that. And what about doing a certain amount, whether it's a percentage per sport or a dollar amount, like we say $1,000 per student? And if it covers it, fine. If it's over the amount, we don't spend that amount. I mean, it doesn't have to be so complicated, I don't think.
I have a question. Have we ever really researched other, I know that we were trying to do this ourselves. We did not go to Shipman and Goodwin. We did not go to anyone else to really kind of look at
We
a.
did go to Shipman Goodwin. They didn't have a, like,
Policy like that. They don't have a policy like this?
not regarding, specifically towards co-ops.
Do any other towns?
I mean, so I'll use Summers, for example, like, they are not pay to play, but they do have a policy in place, regarding, co-ops.
Would it be helpful for us to see that? I mean, might it help our thinking
Yeah, I mean, it's basically theirs is 60%, so they do a percent.
of any sport?
So that's a,
Yeah, that's sort of, it- yeah,
for
but-
co-ops, but not every.
But there's nothing in there about their transportation, Patrick, either, that I read when I tried to
correct,
find it.
because transportation is typically like through budget, not policy.
For the current school year and the kids who are coming into our winter sports, I don't know when gymnastics happens. We have decided that we are covering the cost this year. Full.
Yeah.
So we have between now and next school year to come up with a policy for next school year. And during the budgeting season, which Patrick's already mentioned that he already had the bulk on the list. From now through budget season, if we can get these numbers broke out in by sport, how the bigger numbers, and Patrick comes up with budgetary figures within this athletic budget, can't we just handle this like in between now and April and May? Because right now, this does not affect anyone. There's no persons.
What about wrestling? That's for next year, Patrick? Are we talking about?
We,
They're starting.
correct. So we have a strong interest in wrestling and that's, seems to be.
This year?
Right.
And so that would affect transportation. I would think.
Yeah, I don't know. And then
Because
I just.
Typically the way the co-op works, if you are not the host school and you are sending, and it's a team sport, so not, so outside of like odd times for practice time, like hockey, gymnastics, swimming, golf, things that really have to do with based on availability with facilities. Typically transportation is provided. So things such as like soccer, which are usually right after school, or football that's after school, or wrestling or basketball. Sports that are generally right after school, transportation is generally provided to get those kids to the whole school.
And so wrestling would be one of those. So I guess I'm just trying to get at what that would be my dilemma in thinking about this.
Well, I don't think
For this
this was ever gonna be for this year. So
Right.
when we talked about it previously, it was always for next school year anyway. So if wrestling is starting this season, I don't think it was gonna affect it this year anyway.
It is. Wrestling is starting this year.
Yeah.
But
So I'm just clarifying, like, in terms of timing, this wouldn't affect wrestling for this school year. And because we're talking about
Well,
next,
Wrestling, I thought
wrestling's gonna start in a month.
in a month.
And this policy, even if we pass it tonight, wouldn't affect it because it's for next.
Right. What I
School
was,
year.
what I was
I'm just
questioning,
clarifying.
honestly, Kay, what I was just questioning is it, looking at trying to accommodate the request to fund football because of the need to let families know. Wrestling is going to start this year too. It's the same type of sport right now. How do we as a board say, okay, we're paying for football, but we're not paying for wrestling transportation?
We didn't.
But I'm saying we were never saying that, Betsy. That's why I'm confused about why. We were never saying we weren't.
There needs to be a better explanation of co-op sports because I think in the traditional sense of what I went to school, co-op sports was hockey. We didn't have a hockey team. Now we have a lot of sports that are considered co-op sports because we're either sending our children or other children are coming here. So maybe we need a differentiation in what we call them. Be it
However,
Be
we're
it-
a host, that's one thing. We're
co-ops
not the
or
host.
right, or if it
Doing what they do.
or if it's like wrestling that happens immediately at the end of school, that's
Maybe that's a different.
considered not a co-op. I think we need to have different names for them, but I back to what I was just saying, that can we just, as budget season is approaching, numbers are gonna start getting looked at. If Ryan can deep into all of it, and we address this in April when we all have a better understanding of all of it.
Yeah, I would agree. The general consensus seems that we're not going to vote on this tonight, and I wasn't trying to push that we should. I guess I was just confused. So I'm sorry if I seemed like I was snapping at you, Betsy. I just was confused about what you were asking because it wasn't affecting anyone for this year. But we're not going to vote on it, and I think we have discussed it for quite a period of time. We were just trying to get a little bit more direction for Patrick. If we're not going to vote on it, what
I
needs
think
to
would be
be?
helpful if there's information that has been requested, if we could have it in writing, in email to Ryan and myself by Friday, the 22nd, that gives over a week. Because we are getting into budget season, I think that would be helpful. So I would say like, if there's, something specific, that way I can work with Ryan and Dean to get all the necessary information, make sure that we allocate the time necessary to get the work done that's being requested, I would just ask that any of that information, if it's been previously requested, it's in writing, so we're clear. If we have any questions, we can follow. And the same with CNA issue with having those questions emailed to Ryan and myself by Friday, the 22nd of this month.
All right, does that sound good to everybody? So do we need to table it specifically, or can we just, yeah?
I would just.
All right, so can I would entertain a motion to table.
So Kate, are you gonna send us some kind of form? How are we responding to this? How will we get this information?
Just
As the
email
board
us.
back to,
Like whatever the question is that you want us to research, I would just email. Ryan and I will put it in one sheet once by then we'll start to work on it. It gives us, enough time to head into December. And then we'll know by then to that date, and if there's any follow-ups, or clarification, we can reach out.
I'd like to make a motion to table item 11.1, vote to adopt policy 5136 co-ops for the series.
I'll second. All right, so Denise made the motion and Heather seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes to table the motion. Thank you. All right, now next we have our Board of Education meeting schedule, which is on page 14. This has the 2025 proposed meeting list. Currently it does have like one meeting July, one meeting August, and one meeting in December. It does have for next year, the November 25th, which is moved to a Tuesday. I know this year we ended up canceling that meeting, so that may be something that gets considered, but Jessica, was there anything in particular other than that you wanted to point out about this schedule or about?
No, I followed the same schedule that we had for this year. So it's I think it's the second and fourth. I don't want to say that wrong. I think that's what it is.
So do you need a motion to approve it?
Graduation
Um,
in on any of these June dates?
no.
No, so high school graduation is set. One of the things that we did do different with the current school calendar is we designated what you can do on the last day of the scheduled day of school for high school. So last day is June 9th, so we know that high school graduation is going to be June 9th. If we have snow days, that will be the last day for our seniors, regardless if they have snow days. So that's part of so we know that's going to be graduation, and the only thing that possibly could impact, but we have some flexibility is middle school promotion. So it'll just it just won't be on the 11th.
A motion to approve the meeting schedule for 2025 as set forward.
I'll second that.
All right, so motion by Heather, seconded by Betsy. Any further discussion? Maureen, did you have a question?
February 12th, not a holiday.
I think President's Day's the week after.
We do them on, I don't know, they did something wacky with all those February dates. They combined some, they kicked some.
Yes.
I think it's I want to say it's usually the third Monday.
It's usually the 20th.
It's the 17th is President's Day.
As well, just jumped off the page. I mean, somebody is quoting.
Thinking back when we were kids, and it was like Lincoln's birthday, and it was Lincoln's birthday.
I do know in some years in April, the board meeting has landed on vacation, and so we haven't had the meeting. This year is not the case. So those are both, the vacation is the week in between those two dates too.
All right, any further questions? Okay, so you got, the motion was made and seconded by, right? You're good. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, thank you very much. Next on the agenda, we have liaison and subcommittee reports. To the Board of Selectmen meeting this past
Thursday, having the board discussed and voted on the capital non-recurring transfer pertaining to our school's facility project. Very similar to what they did with the high school track engineering money. They voted to transfer and rename funding from the East Windsor High School roof engineering to town property school HVAC. This would be on the town property line, but would be working collaboratively with the Board of Education Facilities Subcommittee. And I believe that's moving forward to be approved by the Board of Finance. And then also the Arts and Culture Commission finished they displayed the bottle cap artwork on the town hall. If you haven't had a chance to see it, it's on the left-hand side if you're looking at the building. And that was made with all of the bottle caps that were collected by each of the schools and certain town facilities last year. It's great. Was it as a
Are there other liaison or subcommittee reports? I know we had
the policy, and we'll touch base on this and stuff, and then, we just have our next meeting to finish or to do, series, 5,000 questions you're supposed to be in by the 11th. That was good for.
the finance we just met tonight, so I don't know, we usually do it on the following sometimes, so I don't know that if there's anything in particular that you want to share or if you're good.
Facilities, who do you?
No.
Because I've been in my age.
It's nice to have you back.
Went to pension.
Okay.
And pensions at this point are looking well. The market is doing well and holding, as, you know, the asset allocation is staying the same. Roughly going for the same percentages, and, it's up from inception, just something along the lines. Return this year to date has been 15.3%, but this is as of September 30th, so there's something a little bit. Yeah. A little volatility, but it's looking good.
I don't.
Did anybody else have any other liaison or subcommittee updates? Okay. Next, we have public participation again. I think we're good. No public in the room right now. And then miscellaneous. Does anybody have any miscellaneous comments or events?
I just have a question.
Yeah.
Who's the clock?
You know, we actually,
I already texted Kyle about it.
Okay.
I have a couple of things. I don't know if there's any interest in this. I'm exactly sure what he does. I did meet, Christopher Todd. He's the executive director of the Office of Early College Programs for UConn, which does like our college courses every 2 years. He does say that he does come to Board of Ed meetings, do presentations, and will meet with different areas. I don't know if you guys have talked with him or not.
I found him to be an excellent resource in the past. I didn't realize like what would be the topic they would talk.
I guess he said like I can get a little more information from him. I kind of met him at work, so it was a different environment I met him in. But he said that he'll even kind of look at the programs that we're using now and like our school courses our schools offer, and can always offer different ideas and thoughts. And
He worked in certification. So he changed.
He moved over to UConn.
so just someone that offered it up to me. If anyone's interested or wants his contact information, I do have his current contact information. He just offered it to me. And then my only other miscellaneous was Noreen and I got firsthand use of our new security systems that we're using in the school. I just didn't know that we had those at all installed. It was an interesting experience for anybody that has not been into our schools. You kind of get buzzed in between the doors. And the system you have to enter your information, your phone number, takes a picture of your ID, it scans it in, then it takes a picture of you, and then it prints out a badge for you to wear. Mine went seamlessly, Noreen had a little harder time getting in the door. And then I guess that next time I go in, it'll recognize me because it has my information in it, but I wasn't aware that those were being installed or put in, and just if anybody goes in, it's just We know that those are in there.
Interesting.
It was a process. It took me 10 minutes to get. In the building.
You don't have to collect IDs anymore.
Yeah,
Well-
okay, so I mean, a couple background, one, it was through a security grant. Two, if you're building any type of new construction, I mean, CSG confirmed that it's a requirement, so like so it's not like,
Good
I mean,
practice.
this is the direction school security has taken in Connecticut as far as being mandated as well. Three, I know that each of the schools have put it out in parent communication on multiple as far as like the new process, but we also know that change is different and it does take some time.
I just so you're aware, I have heard from elementary school parents that they received that. Middle school and high school parents are saying they did not receive that information, just putting it out there. So I'm not saying it was or was not put out there, but that's the feedback that's coming this way. But I just thought it's a good experience to know that that's what is there and how it works and stuff like that.
And I was gonna say, as a parent, I know I've got information in terms of that you have to make an appointment or you're gonna be met at the door now too, that you can't just like buzz and expect to be able to get into a building necessarily either. So even if in the past you might have dropped off your child's lunch in the office or something like that, you can still go, but they're just gonna meet you at the door and take lunch. You're not
I
gonna
did
go.
know that.
Yeah.
Communication, not so specific.
But in terms of like the door thing, yeah, that's, yeah.
As Gary said, it took me like 10 minutes. I literally could get in and they let me in the building and I went down to the office and they took my license and did all of that and then told me go back and get your badge because it had to print down there. And when I got back out there were 2 badges printed, one that apparently it did work, but didn't really work. And in the meantime, I'm getting text messages telling me, saying to me, somebody's coming for you. I got a text message that said, Melissa, I don't know if it was Melissa, but whatever, said they're coming for you. And they're like, I don't know. And then, and then at like 2:30 in the afternoon, which our meeting was over at 9:40, I got a text message saying, are you still in the building? Or would you like to be logged on to the high school? And I'm just like going, well, no, I'm certainly not there. So I'm not sure if it's kinks, if it needs to get worked out, whatever it is, but it was an interesting thing.
And I did not ever get a text message out to me by one.
Oh,
Did you sign out there?
No,
Okay.
I just logged out.
Because I think it's,
All right, well, good to know in terms of security.
So that's good for security. You can get in, but that you don't have anything to get out. Could you be in the building like a long time? That would be something to
Now,
check out, right?
high school is implemented
Yeah.
first.
It's new.
I know it sends you a text and I believe if it knows when supposedly it's supposed to know when you leave. Like, I don't know if it's linked to the badge or it's linked to your cell phone or what that is. I don't know. Can you speak over?
I think you're supposed to sign.
The usefulness of it is they were able to track you through the building. And so if you leave through the main entrance, all those cameras will track you leaving, so we can see you leaving.
So I don't know if you left through a different, I don't know.
no,
There's things. I mean, we've had, it's been a process.
you know, honestly, mine was a bit weird because I didn't get in at first, and then I went in and I got a badge. They sent me back to get my badge, and then there were 2 badges, so maybe the badge didn't know.
Maybe on the second bed.
Maybe it was an experience.
Maybe that is why you did that, because you have 2 bedrooms.
My suggestion is if you're going to a school, go a little early.
Be prepared.
Just for the first go.
I will say we did do a slow rollout, so we started with the high school, middle school. If we didn't start it, starting relatively soon.
It started.
It did it, all right, and then Broadbrook is next. So Broadbrook has not started yet, that I do know.
Yeah.
2 other really quick things. I met it with the middle school because I went on the bands. 5th and 6th grade band went up to UMass for a band presentation from all their marching band, and it was fantastic, and the kids were really well behaved. a little rowdy on the bus on the way home, but you know, it's exciting. And, I really appreciate the effort that Ms. Stinson has put into, making the kids, exposing them to all of that exciting stuff, because the presentation that the UMass put on was fantastic, and the kids were wrecked. They just loved it. And the second thing, while this was a Girl Scout trip, we went on a trip to our own police station, and we had Sergeant
Bless you.
Sergeant Chant took us through the building, and it was a fascinating trip. And I just thought that it might not be a bad idea if anybody in either the middle school or the elementary school was looking to put together a field trip to take our kids somewhere in town, that to go to our own police department, because stuff that you wouldn't see. I mean, not that I don't want to go scaring kids straight or what have you, but just some of the stuff was very impactful when you walk in and you see the Sally Port, that once you're in there, the car is in there, you can't get out. And the other things from the police officers, they were all so kind and friendly and welcoming. And then they had a big picture of Milo, the dog, and then they have a police dog that is a comfort dog.
Lady.
She's just so sweet, and it was really a nice trip. And I thought that some of the other kids in our schools might enjoy that and learn a lot. So, my 2 cents.
The only other update I have, the local prevention council, we're hosting our first event tomorrow night at the high school. We're doing a screening of like a short documentary called Screenagers. And we're providing dinner and having a discussion afterwards. So we have a number of families that have already signed up. We're also providing childcare. We have some volunteers from the community that are going to help watch some of the kids, so that way the parents can kind of be engaged in the conversation.
That's good.
Yeah, that looks.
That looks very good.
Can I ask, as a non-parent, I mean, I know parent, but not in the schools, how do I get the information the parents get? Because I don't get the letters this fall saying that the, security is, or there's upgrades to whatever, or there's a survey going out about whatever.
You just share the newsletter.
So I can tell you, I do forward, the newsletters,
Yeah,
each of the
Yeah.
schools.
the 5 things from the. high school.
Yeah, typically the information is in those. I don't believe I forwarded the Broadbrook one, but the other 2 schools who have been included as far as like their,
The security was in there?
it was.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, I've been in a cave for a month, so.
But I'm not positive I forwarded the Broadbrook one, because I think that was messaged individually. But the message was identical to the other 2 schools.
Okay, as long as, if that's.
Is there
all
a
it is.
newsletter from the high school or the 5?
The 5 things is, yeah.
All right. And then I just want to note with the enrollment report, we were just double checking the choice program numbers. We'll get that updated. I believe there are around, we're saying the 73 number
The
is
number is consistent.
consistent for this year.
And that's in this report.
It does, but it says 2023. And so I was just
Yeah.
clarifying, but the 53 students was 2022. So
Yeah, the
last year.
information report is accurate. We'll just get you the updated, the most current updated number of choice students, but it's there's not, it's within like 1 or 2 of that, so there's not a significant change.
Okay.
So there is a significant change from last year, however, not choice students, but overall enrollment. What, I thought we were attracting more people. What?
Biggest difference is kindergarten, which had to do with the change of age.
Okay.
So that
Makes sense.
that's the biggest.
So we had maybe 20 to 30 kids that were impacted by that?
No, I want to say 20, from if you look at last year's kindergarten to this year's 2018, let's see.
So does that mean that next year we're gonna have a bigger kindergarten?
Yeah.
Well, no, because, you should have a normal kindergarten, because the age will be back to.
The correct. I know.
So it should be back to normal, but it won't be larger.
We have 60.
So that class is going to be small all the way throughout.
Just
And now that's not just a East Windsor thing, that's a Connecticut thing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, and then we also had a letter at the end that was very nice about a student who is involved in a production of The Wizard of Oz. That is gonna be open November 21st through December 8th, if anybody wanted to go. So that's
Yeah, my understanding is she has multiple smaller roles within it. Certainly it was shared with us. And certainly we're proud of our student achievements. So even though it's not an East Windsor production, certainly we felt it was worth sharing.
great. And I think that is it tonight. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
All right, so Denise made the motion and Courtney seconded. All in favor? Motion passes at 8:41.